Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
What's up, fam? It's sports journalist Ari Chambers.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your girl, Sam J.
And we're the hosts of Everyone Watches Women's Sports, a new podcast from Together.
We're breaking down the biggest headlines, the viral moments, and the stories everyone's talking about across women's sports.
From game-changing performances to culture-shifting conversations, we'll give you our takes, our debates, and a few laughs along the way.
Because everyone watches women's sports. Listen to Everyone Watches Women's Sports
on the iHeartRadio app,
Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Joy is essential, and it's also elusive. But now, there's a new and exciting way to start your journey toward a more joyful existence. Joy 101. It's a new podcast hosted by me, Hoda Kotb. If you're craving inspiration to maximize your joy, tune into these candid, uplifting, and moving on-air chats. Open your free iHeartRadio app, search Joy 101, and listen now. Joy 101 with Hoda Kotb is presented by CVS.
My first guest is Paris Hilton, Shakira, Luke, and Yerin. Have surprises?
Many surprises.
Welcome to the Sweet 305 podcast, where the group chat comes to life.
What up? You're the only person I know that loves a yellow Starburst.
It's lemonade.
This is Sweet 305. Here, oversharing is encouraged. Listen to Sweet 305 with Lele Pons on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, it's the Jonas Brothers. This week on the podcast, Hey Jonas, we're hanging out with Michael Bublé. After Kevin's recent interesting confession about Michael, we figured there's only one thing to do. We must invite Michael Bublé on the podcast, and we want to know what's on his Sexy Time playlist.
You know, I did an interview, and they're like, have you heard about this Jonas Brothers thing? And they were like, what did you think of it? And I was like, well, I mean, it's reciprocal.
We talk about Kevin's confession, Michael's reaction, and a whole lot more. Our conversation with Michael Bublé is out now. Listen to Hey Jonas on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You've reached American History Hotline. You ask the questions, we get the answers. Leave a message.
Hey there, American History Hotliners. Your host, Bob Crawford here. Happy to be joining you again for another episode of American History Hotline. You're the ones with the questions. I'm a guy trying to get you some answers. And keep those questions coming. The best way to get us the question is to record a video or a voice memo on your phone and email it to americanhistoryhotline@gmail.com. That's American History Hotline, all one word, @gmail.com. And remember, we are the American History Hotline. Okay, today's question is about space, the final frontier. It's a great one. And here to help me answer it is Andrew Chaikin. He's an award-winning science journalist and space historian, author of numerous books, including A Man on the Moon. James Cameron called him our best historian of the space age. Andrew, so great to have you with me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, Andrew, here's the question that our friend is hoping you can answer. It comes from Evan in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. He wants to know, why did the United States stop going to the moon? And do we have any plans to go back? Now, Andrew, before you answer, I think we need to get a little background first. When was the last time a human set foot on the moon?
Well, that was a long time ago. It was December of 1972 on the last Apollo lunar landing mission, Apollo 17. And amazingly, those last lunar footsteps happened just less than 12 years after President John Kennedy challenged the nation to send humans to the surface of the moon return them safely to the Earth. He actually said, land a man on the moon and return him safely to the Earth by the end of the 1960s. And it turned out, I mean, everybody knows that that happened on Apollo 11 in July of 1969. And Kennedy actually said nothing about going back, but we did go back. And we tried to land on the moon several more times, and every one of them worked except for Apollo 13, and you all know that story as well. But yeah, after Apollo 17, that was the end of the lunar landing program.
So let's go back even further. Why go to the moon in the first place? What was the reason that Kennedy wanted to put us on the moon?
Well, it's really a product of the Cold War. And if you think about what things were like when Kennedy took office in 1961, the Cold War was at its height. The geopolitical competition between the United States and the Soviet Union, kind of a battle for international prestige and public opinion. And Kennedy was very alarmed by the fact that the Soviets in April of 1961 were able to launch the first human into space, Yuri Gagarin, which scooped our effort, which was called Mercury, and we didn't put our first American in space until a few weeks later with Alan Shepard, and Shepard didn't even get into orbit the way Gagarin had. And even before Shepard's flight, Kennedy met with his advisors and said, we have to find something to show the world that we are strong, that we have a strong society. We have nations out there that are developing nations that we do not want them to align with the Soviets. We want them to be with us in the world balance of power. And so we need to find something spectacular to do in space. And he consulted with people from NASA, and they said, if we try to land humans on the moon, we would probably succeed if we went all out, and the Soviets probably would not succeed. Even though they had, at that moment, more powerful rockets, they knew, the NASA people knew, that it was going to take a lot more than powerful rockets. Actually, their rocket would not have been able to put humans on the moon. And it was going to take a heck of a lot more, microelectronics, complicated systems, very sophisticated spacecraft. And so that kind of leveled the playing field. But Kennedy was thinking as a statesman. He was not a space fan at that time. I think he got much more enthusiastic when he saw what was developing as Apollo got started. But it was really Cold War competition that gave birth to the moon landing program.
Has anyone from any other country set foot on the moon?
No. Nobody has been on the surface of the moon except the 12 astronauts from Apollo on the 6 lunar landings. Now, NASA is working very, very hard to return astronauts to the moon with a program called Artemis. And so far, the program has flown one unpiloted mission with the capsule, the Orion capsule, which is kind of the mothership. The lander is still in development. It's being created by SpaceX. And there are plans next year to send 4 astronauts around the moon. And then after that, perhaps in 2027, will come the first landing on the Artemis 3 mission.
I have to ask, is that proposed to be an all-women crew?
No, but there is a woman on the crew for the landing has not been named yet. And but the flight around the moon, one of the astronauts is a woman, Christina Cook, and very, very talented and extremely capable, and has been in space and has done, actually she and one of her fellow astronauts did the first all-women spacewalk a few years ago. So she's already had some milestones that way.
So I want to ask you this. Have you ever encountered a conspiracy theorist, like someone who says the moon landing was staged?
Oh my God, yes. And it's just so appalling because, you know, there it just flies in the face of everything we know about the way NASA worked, about the way, we got all those rocks back from the moon. They tell us things that no Earth rock could possibly have told us. The chemistry of those rocks, the the details of those rocks, they could not have originated on Earth. We've now had images from orbiting satellites with very high resolution cameras that actually show the footprints, the trail of the astronauts as they walked across the moon. But my favorite line refuting the hoax theorists, who really, when they go at it, they really just reveal how little they understand about science. When they talk about, oh, they would never have survived the radiation. Well, of course they did, because they went through the Van Allen belts very quickly. Or they say, well, there's no stars in the photos. It must have been done in a studio. Well, the reason there's no stars in the photos is because they were exposed for the conditions on the lunar surface with a very bright landscape illuminated by a brilliant sun. And I could go on and on and on. But my favorite line was what Neil Armstrong said. He said, it would have been harder to fake it than to do it.
Andrew, now that we've set up this background, let's get to our listener's question. Why did we stop going to the moon?
Well, it goes back to the reason why we started, which, as I say, in Kennedy's mind, was to show the world the strength of our free society by doing something very, very challenging in space. Once we accomplished that with Apollo 11, the impetus to keep funding very ambitious human spaceflight programs, that went away. And we had the hardware left over to keep going to the moon several more times. But NASA's efforts at that time, right after Apollo 11, to convince the White House and Congress to support, very ambitious things like a base on the moon and space stations in Earth orbit, space stations in lunar orbit, eventually sending humans to Mars, all of those things were rejected. The country was a very different place by the time Apollo 11 landed in 1969 than it had been when Kennedy challenged us to go to the moon in 1961. We had the Vietnam War, which was costing incredible amounts of money. I think they spent in a month what the entire Apollo program cost, something like that. And the concerns over the environment, the civil rights struggle was very much on people's minds. Priorities had shifted. And in fact, most people don't even know this. A year after Apollo 11, NASA was fighting for its life. The budget cuts were so strong, and the budget was coming down so steeply that the entire human spaceflight program was in danger of going extinct. And the only thing that saved it was that President Nixon approved and Congress approved the space shuttle program to create a reusable vehicle, but the shuttle never went any further than low Earth orbit. So it's taken all of this time after NASA has flown the space shuttle, which did amazing things and had amazing capabilities, built a permanent space station in Earth orbit where we've studied the medical effects of long-term space flight. We've looked into all kinds of processes that might take advantage of weightlessness, all of these things, learned how to keep a vehicle going in space for years and years and years. We've had astronauts up on the space station as long as a year at a time to teach us how we need to keep astronauts healthy if they go to Mars. All of those things now have set the stage for the Artemis program, which finally now, more than half a century later, is trying to pick up where Apollo left off.
So it sounds like the shuttle missions really did a lot of the basic science work that will potentially end the International Space Station
and the station.
Yeah. That will.
But there's a lot. There's a lot more to do. I mean, I'll tell you a little story that I heard from NASA's chief spacecraft designer, Max Faget, brilliant engineer, designed the Mercury capsule, figured out the shape it had to be able to get back into the atmosphere without burning up. and had a huge role in designing the Apollo capsule and the space shuttle itself. And Max told me that one day, a few years after the last moon landing, he and his former boss, Bob Gilruth, also a brilliant engineer, were walking along the beach in Galveston, Texas. And there was a big moon in the sky. And Bob Gilruth, who at this point was an elder statesman of human spaceflight, turned to Faget and he said, "You know, Max, someday people are going to try to go back to the moon and they're going to find out how hard it really is." And I have come to really understand the wisdom of that comment, because for the last 10, 15 years, I have spent all of my time delving into why Apollo was successful. And it really comes down to it's more than the rocket science. The rocket science is incredibly hard. We know that. But the human piece turns out to be the most challenging. How we think about the work, the mindset we have to bring to the work in order to succeed. And what I've done is I've gone back to Apollo and I've created a framework to talk about the mindset, the behaviors, the practices we must bring for spaceflight professionals to succeed in a business as demanding and unforgiving as spaceflight, and particularly sending humans to other worlds. And I teach a class at NASA called Principles of Success in Spaceflight. And my wife and I are working on the companion book, which we plan to have out next year.
What's up, fam? I'm sports journalist Ari Chambers.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your girl, Sam J.
And we're the hosts of Everyone Watches Women's Sports, a new podcast from Together and iHeart Women's Sports.
Because let's be real, women's sports is giving us way too much to talk about these days.
The highlights, the rivalries, the breakout stars, the moments that take over your entire timeline.
And the conversations that start during the game and somehow keep going all week.
Every week, we're breaking down the biggest stories across women's sports.
We'll give you our takes, our debates, and probably a few disagreements.
We'll talk to athletes, celebrate big moments, and get into what's happening on and off the field, court, track, and beyond.
Because we're not just interested in what happened, we're interested in why everyone's talking about it. Because everyone watches women's sports. So if you're already a fan,
or you're just getting into the game, there's a seat for you right here.
Listen to Everyone Watches Women's Sports
on the iHeartRadio app,
Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, I'm Hoda Kotb, host of the podcast Joy 101 with Hoda Kotb. Okay, if you know me, you know this. I'm always searching for inspiration, for support, and useful tools to help maximize joy. So this podcast lets us uncover all of that together. We're going to have these meaningful conversations with the world's most fascinating people, like when actress Olivia Munn shared how she overcame fierce health challenges that she never saw coming.
I've gone through breast cancer and then helped my mother through breast cancer, and that was more difficult. There's a lot of people who understand postpartum depression. I was not prepared for postpartum anxiety.
Olympic champ Shawn Johnson revealed why she had no choice but to be a gymnast.
There was something about gymnastics that was intoxicating to me. It's given me a belief that we all have one of those treasures inside of us. We just have to find it.
Listen to Joy 101 with Hoda Kotb on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
My first guest is Paris Hilton, Shakira, Luke and Yerin, Samira y Gracie. I'm so excited.
On the bouncy bed.
You have surprises?
Many surprises.
Welcome to Suite 305, where the group chat comes to life. What up? Es como que una forma de decir como, hola amiga, hola mejor amiga, hola hermana, what up?
Mira, nunca lo había hablado con nadie. Excepto con mis hijos. Mis hijos sí saben.
Sé mi amante.
Uf. Punch. Qué increíble. Ya, la telenovela.
You're the only person I know that loves a yellow starburst.
It's lemonade. No hay alguien que te falta, como que tú dices, me gustaría colaborar con esta persona. This is Suite 305. Listen to Suite 305 with Lele Pons as part of My Cultura podcast network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Jake Brennan, and on the Disgraceland podcast, I explore the wild lives of rock stars and unbelievable true crime stories from music history. These are the stories you haven't heard, the kind you'll end up telling someone else. like the time Paul McCartney spent in one of the world's most notorious prisons. Imagine that. You're Paul McCartney. It's 1980. You're an ex-Beatle, and you're doing time in one of Japan's worst prisons, right there alongside Yakuza gangsters, and for a ridiculous charge. Or the bizarre crime Lady Gaga is accused of. Who is the artist Lady Gaga is being accused of doing the unthinkable to, after allegedly stealing her music and style to become famous? And what about that time Blondie's Debbie Harry escaped a serial killer? The man who had given her that ride she barely escaped from was Ted Bundy. Listen to Disgraceland on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is American History Hotline. I'm Bob Crawford. Today my guest is Andrew Chaikin, space historian and author of the book A Man on the Moon. We're talking about that big rock in the sky, the moon. Why has it been more than half a century since a human has bounced around on its surface? Remember, if you have any questions about American history, let's have them. Record yourself using a voice memo on your phone and email it to americanhistoryhotline@gmail.com. We'll find an amazing expert like Andrew to answer your question. Andrew, what did we learn in science terms from the moon landing?
We learned an incredible amount. We had in our hands, when Apollo 11 came back, the rocks that Neil Armstrong had picked up on the Sea of Tranquility. In the overnight, those rocks changed our understanding of the moon. We now knew that the moon was very ancient. We knew that lava flows had erupted on the moon billions of years ago, but that since then, the moon has mostly been very quiet and dead, geologically speaking. Of course, biologically speaking, the moon is incredibly hostile. So nobody who understood the environment of the moon thought that we would find life there. But for the landings that followed and went to different places around the moon, the highlands of the moon, where the rocks were even older, they picked up rocks dating back 4.5 billion years. That's almost the birth of the solar system. It's almost as old as the Earth. And it told us, the rocks told us, that the moon probably formed early in the solar system's history when a massive body, like a planet, slammed into the Earth, a planet maybe the size of Mars, slammed into the Earth and ejected material from the Earth. And of course, the body itself that slammed into the Earth was also destroyed. That material went into orbit around the Earth and eventually coalesced into what we call the moon. So the moon, scientifically, is really the Rosetta Stone for deciphering the earliest history of the Earth, the earliest history of the solar system, particularly the impact history, which is so critical to understand even how life on the Earth came about, because those asteroids and comets that hit the Earth were the vehicles that delivered water and organic molecules and the building blocks of life, amino acids, certainly, to the infant Earth. And the energy that they brought to the Earth may have been critical in helping life get started. So, when we barely scratch the surface of what the moon has to tell us, I mean, if you think about it, the moon has as much land area as the entire continent of Africa. And we landed in 6 places, and walked around or drove around in the case of the later missions. And then there have been a few robotic missions that have brought back samples. But like I say, that's just scratching the surface. But let me just add to that by saying what I think the 3 great legacies of the moon landings are. So scientifically, that's number 1. Number 2 is the perspective we gained by looking back at the Earth. And when you go out to the moon, the Earth is so far away, it's 240,000 miles, give or take. And that's so far away that you can literally cover it with an outstretched thumb. And that is a shift in awareness that humans had never experienced until Apollo. And it taught us a lesson that the Earth is a beautiful and in many ways fragile oasis in space, and we need to take care of it. We need to cherish it and protect it. So that's the second great legacy of Apollo, the leap in awareness. The third is what humans can do when they work together. And as I say in my work on principles of success in spaceflight, that's right at the heart of what I'm trying to get across to people, is the ways in which Apollo forced us to work together. And, physics doesn't lie, right? You can go in with any idea you think you know, but the physics is going to be the final arbiter of what works and doesn't work. So that's the way engineering is. And actually, I said Kennedy wanted to do this for Cold War reasons, but he actually said in a speech he gave in the fall of 1962 at Rice University, he said, we go to the moon and do the other things in this decade, not because they're easy, but because they're hard. Because that challenge will serve to organize and measure the best of our abilities and skills. That's it in a nutshell. And he knew that. He understood that.
Well, it's so interesting you say that, because in a lot of ways, it feels like our country is in a similar place like it was in 1972. People might say housing is too expensive, food costs are outrageous, education, healthcare, childcare, unaffordable. You've seen the Doge cuts. Has NASA been spared from that?
No.
And is there a sense with the politicians and the federal government in the situation it is as we speak that, hey, can we really afford to go to the moon?
Well, let me say a few things about that. First of all, no, NASA has not been spared, and we don't really know the full measure of what will happen at NASA. That's kind of unfolding as we watch. But I think the thing that scares me the most is the rejection of the value of scientific exploration. If we go back to the moon, it can't just be about flags and footprints, to use an often heard phrase. I think even Buzz Aldrin used that phrase once in a speech. It can't just be about, look at us, we have the ability to put humans on another world. The return on that huge investment comes in the form of new knowledge and new understanding, not just about how to do hard things, which is very valuable, and the technological spin-offs are valuable, but the scientific understanding is immeasurably valuable. It teaches us about who we are, where we came from, where we're going, how life got started. I mean, I can't think of a more compelling question than how life got started. Well, I'll tell you what, the moon is like walking into the rare book room of the cosmic library. We can page through the earliest chapters of solar system history, which are recorded very cleanly on the surface of the moon. So, I am really passionately hoping that the scientific exploration of the moon and the solar system as a wider arena, and there's so many exciting missions that are either underway or being planned to launch in the next decade, or several years, or within the next decade. Amazing missions to all kinds of places. And I just hope we don't lose sight of how critical that is to us for the health and well-being of our society. I also think that one of the great lessons of Apollo is in danger of being lost, because we are so subjected to us versus them thinking these days. And it's really become rampant. And Apollo showed us that to do great things, we have to work together. We have to be open to information that doesn't necessarily agree with what we thought we knew. We have to be open-minded and collaborative, and the greater good. The team is all of us. We're the astronauts called the Earth, spaceship Earth. And we're all inhabitants of spaceship Earth. And so we gotta get our minds around that fact that all of this us versus them is leading us away from what will ultimately benefit us as a society and us as a human species.
What about the psychological effect of space travel? I remember a couple of years ago, William Shatner was on, I think it was Jeff Bezos. Is it Blue Origin is what they call it?
Yes.
And
it was called the New Shepard vehicle. Jeff names his vehicles after astronauts. So the Shepard, the Alan Shepard Mercury flight was a suborbital up and down ballistic arc. New Shepard goes up and down, but it does it amazingly in more of a straight line. It goes up under constant rocket power, hovers, goes over the top of its, it goes up to the end of its acceleration and then comes back down under controlled descent. And so you're in space, you're weightless for about 5 minutes, you're above the atmosphere, you can look around and see this incredible panorama. And I was taken, I know where you're going with this, because I remember when Shatner came back and he said, man, people talk about space as this exciting, uplifting experience. He said, I looked out of those windows and that blackness scared the daylights out of me. He said that was death, if I'm quoting him correctly. And so that was a really interesting take on the space experience.
And
I
he
was
wept.
very gratified.
I remember he wept. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he was very moved by it as well. I say bravo, somebody who went up and clearly was thoughtful about the experience. It wasn't just a joyride. It wasn't just a, gee, this would be cool. It's like he really absorbed an experience on a deep level. And then he was really skilled at communicating the impact of that experience. And I think a lot of the astronauts have tried to do that. And I'm very anxious to hear, these younger astronauts, they're younger than me anyway. I'm about to turn 69, but I know many of the astronauts, including several of the ones who are going around the moon next year. And, they are, I think they're more open to the emotional piece than the Apollo guys were. They came from a different generation. And Ed Mitchell, who you may have heard of because he was very interested in psychic phenomena and ended up studying ESP and that sort of thing after he came back from the moon. But he said to me, when I interviewed him for my book, he said, people kept asking me, how did it feel to be on the moon? I didn't know the answer to that. How did it feel? That wasn't something I thought about. So I think a lot of the guys kind of faced that, the mission they never trained for was a lot tougher for a lot of those guys than actually flying the lunar mission. But I think these younger astronauts are going to have some very, very interesting and I hope compelling things to say.
What is your opinion of the millionaire the billionaire space explorer of the Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and if you've got enough money, you can now build a rocket ship and take your friends up.
I mean,
I know I'm making it sound simpler than it really is, but
there is that aspect. I mean, I think it's probably was inevitable. I don't think we could have predicted it would play out in the way that we're seeing it play out. I think it's like anything. It's a double-edged sword. I think it's creating technologies and new ways of going into space that I think are fabulous. I mean, the engineering work, particularly if you look at a company like SpaceX, which has shown that they can, they can take the first stage of their Falcon 9 rocket and land it. They launch the second stage and then that delivers whatever they're launching into orbit. But then the first stage comes down and actually lands so it can be reused. I mean, that was astounding when they started doing that. And I could probably have rounded up many, many spaceflight veterans who would have predicted it would never work. So bravo to that, bravo to new ways of thinking about how to do spaceflight. That part of it is just fabulous. I think there have been times when they get a little bit too confident and they, the phrase, they don't know what they don't know. They don't have the history that NASA does, but people may come in with a mindset that says, well, how hard could it be if NASA did it 50 years ago? Well, I refer you to that quote from Bob Gilruth. His point was, it can be damned hard.
Andrew, what is your vision of the future of space exploration? I mean, where can you see us in 2072?
Oh, gosh, that's a great question. I think by 2072, we will, whether it's us or China or other countries, will have a base on the moon for sure. China is very directed and ambitious in their space program now, and they've said that they want to build a lunar base, I think. So I think that will be a reality, and I think we'll be able to look up at night and see the lights of a lunar base where people are living and working on another world and learning things that we probably can't even imagine right now. And I think by 2072, we will probably have, I think it's almost a sure thing that we will see human footsteps on Mars. Now, that is an incredible challenge. I mean, the moon really pales in comparison to going to Mars, because if you think about it, the moon the moon is 250,000 miles away. Mars never comes any closer than 35 million miles away. So the challenges of going to Mars, number one, you've got to keep people healthy, right? You've got to protect them from radiation. You've got to give them systems that can last long enough to go to Mars and come back. That could be 2.5 or 3 years, right? You go to Mars, you're on the surface for a year, you come back, you're racking up a lot of time that those systems have to function. And you can't necessarily you definitely can't bring enough spare parts to fix all those things. So we've got to design things with incredible reliability or maintainability. I'll give you one to think about. When you go into deep space, far from the Earth, much farther than the moon, you get a million miles or so out. By the time you get that far out, your communications take so long to travel between you and the Earth that you literally cannot have a real-time conversation with anybody but the people who are on your spaceship with you. By the time you get out to Mars, that could be as much as 22 minutes one way. So, I've always say when I give talks about this, I say, you say, Houston, we've had a problem. You can go watch an episode of Friends before you get the answer.
Oh my God.
So we don't know. That is uncharted territory. We're used to thinking of the crew of the space mission as like a few guys in a vehicle up in space with dozens of people, really hundreds if you think about the whole team on Earth to help them solve problems. Well, with that radio delay, if a problem comes up that's not in the reference books, it's something we haven't seen, and it needs to be solved now or the crew could die, that means that you must have enough people on board so that their collective expertise is sufficient to handle that kind of thing. And people say, oh, well, we'll have AI. AI is not a panacea. We don't really understand AI. And research has shown that automation doesn't reduce risk. It actually introduces risks that are unpredictable. So Mars is a tremendous challenge. But if you're going to give me 2072 as the milestone, I will go out on a limb. I don't think it's a big limb, and say we'll solve those challenges by then. I just hope that we as a society solve the challenges that threaten us down here on Earth long before then.
Let's hope that you are right and that somehow we can learn to come together here on Earth.
Amen.
Well, I've been talking to Andrew Chaikin. Andrew, I've really enjoyed our time together. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks again for having me.
Hey, and check out Andrew's book, A Man on the Moon.
And can I give you my website?
Please do.
Brand new website for my Principles of Success in Spaceflight class. It's called DoSpaceBetter.com.
DoSpaceBetter.com. It's Andrew Chaikin. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob.
You've been listening to American History Hotline, a production of iHeart Podcasts and Scratch Track Productions. The show's executive producer is James Morrison. Our executive producers from iHeart are Jordan Runtall and Jason English. Original music composed by me, Bob Crawford. Please keep in touch. Our email is americanhistoryhotline@gmail.com. If you like the show, please tell your friends and leave us a review in Apple Podcasts. I'm your host, Bob Crawford. Feel free to hit me up on social media to ask a history question or to let me know what you think of the show. You can find me at Bob Crawford Base. Thanks so much for listening. See you next week.
What's up, fam? It's sports journalist Ari Chambers.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your girl, Sam J.
And we're the hosts of Everyone Watches Women's Sports, a new podcast from Together.
We're breaking down the biggest headlines, the viral moments, and the stories everyone's talking about across women's sports.
From game-changing performances to culture-shifting conversations, we'll give you our takes, our debates, and a few laughs along the way.
Because everyone watches women's sports. Listen to Everyone Watches Women's Sports
on the iHeartRadio app,
Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Joy is essential and it's also elusive. But now there's a new and exciting way to start your journey toward a more joyful existence. Joy 101. It's a new podcast hosted by me, Hoda Kotb. If you're craving inspiration to maximize your joy, tune into these candid, uplifting, and moving on-air chats. Open your free iHeartRadio app, search Joy 101, and listen now. Joy 101 with Hoda Kotb is presented by CVS.
My first guest is Paris Hilton, Shakira, Luke, and Yerin. Have surprises?
Many surprises.
Welcome to the Sweet 305 podcast, where the group chat comes to life.
What up? You're the only person I know that loves a yellow Starburst.
It's lemonade.
This is Sweet 305. Here, oversharing is encouraged. Listen to Sweet 305 with Lele Pons on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everyone, it's the Jonas Brothers. This week on the podcast, Hey Jonas, we're hanging out with Michael Bublé. After Kevin's recent interesting confession about Michael, we figured there's only one thing to do. We must invite Michael Bublé on the podcast, and we want to know what's on his Sexy Time playlist.
You know, I did an interview, and they're like, have you heard about this Jonas Brothers thing? And they were like, what did you think of it? And I was like, well, I mean, it's reciprocal.
We talk about Kevin's confession, Michael's reaction, and a whole lot more. Our conversation with Michael Bublé is out now. Listen to Hey Jonas on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.